group of Americans, another group of people, are what I call sophisticates. Sophisticates are responsible people. They'll do the right people. They'll do the right thing. They will join organizations. They will take on memberships. But they really would rather enjoy their lives. So they love the good things. They do the things they ought to do, and they always try to be the best at whatever it is that they do, and to be recognized as such. Somebody mentioned rewards. Sophisticates would thrive if you recruit them and then give them acknowledgement and rewards. So many memberships that you came to, so many, etc. Another group of Americans, I'll skip graduates for a moment. Another group of Americans are what I call mechanists. Mechanists are what makes America what America is, an innovative country. Mechanists are people who will constantly find an advantage in everything to their benefit. They invent things. A mechanist is a customer who will buy one, get one free, then notice that you fail to note in the fine print what happens if they return one of them. They'll naturally return the one and leave the other one in their house. You forgot to say it. Mechanists, by the way, are also the very same people who constantly game our economic system. I believe that the word derivative is just so much blabber for not real. Mechanists create the economic booms that we were talking about, the recessions. We get carried away with ourselves, boom, and it falls down. Okay. But it makes a country pretty interesting and inventive. Mechanists. Another group of Americans, 9% roughly, are conventionals. These are the people, Paul Harris was probably a conventional. Dudley Do Right, do the right thing, you know, wait for things, do not take more upon yourself than you deserve, be a good fellow. Okay? Only 9% of Americans. 10% of Americans are students, and I don't mean students in schools or universities, I mean people who study things to death. They read the literature, they find out everything there is to know about something. They never get around to acting, because they substitute knowledge for action. These are the people who know everything there is to know about every presidential candidate, and they don't get to the polls. Let's look at another group of people. This is one of my particular favorites. When I originally did this segmentation, I called them barbarians. My wife, a kind soul, said, be a little kinder. Indulgence. 18% of the American population is indulgent. That is to say, they maybe have one thing that they really care about, and they don't really care about much of anything else. And usually that one thing is not somebody else. What they care about is, for example, some of you were kind of on a borderline here, Red Sox fans. This is the guy who he makes a tenth of what you make, but he's got a box at the stadium. This is a guy who lives in a 900 square foot house, has a 36-foot boat. Okay? Somebody who cares only about themselves. There's another group of Americans, roughly another 18%, and if you're doing the math, we're up to almost 40% of America right now. Another group that are called caretakers. These are people who don't believe they have much influence on the world, so they don't get involved. These are the people who say, what can I do? What can I do? By the way, I really believe that when somebody says to you, what can I do? You assume they're asking for instructions and you immediately give them those, just so you know. All right. And then finally, there are what I call gradualists, that upper 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock corner. Gradualists, 1 in 10, are people in America who do something only when they really need to, and then they fade into the background. They act only under fear, duress, excitement, stress, because they have an absolute reason to act, and then they go away. Let me show you how all this fits into the world of America. What I basically described is 4 groups. Advocates, sophisticates, conventionals, and mechanists are essentially active by nature. These are the people who get things done for different reasons and in different ways, but they take initiative. The one thing that America is very interesting about is America is built about initiative, personal, individual initiative. Nobody says that you must do, they say you can do. What a great gift that is. You know, I have Polish history. My father underwent the Nazis, the Soviets. I migrated to Argentina. We went through the Peronistas. I have a sense that the world is not the same as it is here. These are the people who take advantage of the opportunities, and a lot of them are sitting right in this room. Then there's another group of people in America, and they are essentially, functionally inactive. They don't do anything. Students, caretakers, and indulgents. They don't do much. They get by. Now, you may not believe me. You may not want to believe that 46% of the American public is essentially inactive, disinterested. But let me tell you that that number correlates precisely with the number of people who have failed to vote in the last 10 presidential elections. So half of Americans just do not vote. These are that half. Now, if you've been doing the math, you'll notice that 46% and 44%, that's roughly, what's the other 10? The singularly most important constituency in America today, the reactives, the people who respond to things. By the way, in politics, it works exactly that way. In America, roughly 77 million Democrats, roughly 46 million Republicans, but when they actually vote, the number is roughly the same, the actual voters. And the difference for any presidential election is 4 or 5 points. Where do those 4 or 5 points come from? Gradualists. So get to know those people because they influence your life. Be kind to them because they will vote whenever they need to. All right, let's look at the world in another way. Oh, I'm sorry, so in a political election, here's an interesting thing. You need to understand that no American president, with the possible exception of Washington, has ever been elected by a majority. Ever. If half of Americans don't vote, and the other half roughly divide half and half, that means a typical president, when he says, I have a mandate, America has spoken, he's talking about 26% of America. That's how many people actually voted and favored any candidate of the Republican or Democratic Party at any point in time, which is why we keep swinging back and forth. And that's a good thing. Americans, by the way, I believe, and I've written it in my book, are not supposed to trust the government. That's why you have a constitution that is divisive by nature, and thank God, let division reign. Consensus is bad. All right, let's go on. The other thing that divides us is when we talk about the generation factor. Somebody here mentioned we don't have enough young people. We need to worry about getting the young people. So there are, how many generations in America? Anybody really thought about it? For the first time in human history, there are 6 generations living side by side with one another. 6. Never happened before. Why? Because for most of human history, right up until 1900, the average life expectancy of most people was below 45. Below 45. In 1933, when the Social Security Act was passed with a retirement age of 65, the joke is the average death age was 62. Not supposed to have ever happened. Anyway, we have achieved something truly different and unique. 6 generations. I'm not going to go through all of these, but basically they are the GI generation, those who went to war. And by the way, Brokaw is wrong. These people did not go off to war saying, yay, glory and honor. They went off to war going, oh, I wish I didn't have to go. Right? They did what they had to do, but they didn't do it without complaining.